the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello.
You said before
Oh, I did. I
started
wanted to show
recording.
you my kids' school pictures, but you
Okay.
pressed recording. But I was going to put them in the picture. Look at this. Look at this grown girl. Look at this boy. Look at his little arms crossed. Meh. Anyway, um,
Little boss posing.
it's just they've really killed it with their pictures this season. So they had great baseball pictures too.
Way to go,
Very fun.
kids.
Yeah, good job.
So welcome to the new and revised Doom to Fail, where I introduce the episodes ahead of talking a lot. Oh yeah, we're Doom to Fail. Welcome to Doom to Fail. I'm Forge, joined here by Taylor. We just recorded the first episode for the week, and now we're recording the second episode, which, if I recall correctly, is going to be part 2 of our episode from last week. And
Yes.
also, apparently, I kind of touched on a little bit with the talks I had this week about spying and espionage and the CIA and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about.
Sweet.
So it is last week we did Able Archer 83, which was a 1983 war game. And this week we're doing Eligible Receiver 97, which is a internet war game that they did in 1997. Last week I did preface saying that I heard that a lot of people from Cantor Fitzgerald were there and that 15 of them died in 9/11, and I cannot find that written down anywhere. Did I make that up? I don't know. So I'm not going to talk about that anymore. So I don't know if that's true or not.
Did they have an office in one of the towers?
Well, yeah, about 650 people at Cantor Fitzgerald died on 9/11. Most of the people that worked there died. They were actually supposed to go to the hotel my mom works at in Las Vegas the next month for an event, and they had to cancel it because everybody was dead. Cantor Fitzgerald did a great job of coming back from that. But I had heard in one of the books I've been reading, and I've been reading so many books these past couple of weeks that I can't go back and find it because I'm listening to them, so I can't thumb through it and try to figure out where I was. So if anybody
You probably heard right.
Yeah, so I heard somewhere that part of the group that was doing this was in the World Trade Center in Windows on the World, and then in 1997, and they did this exercise, and then later some of them would die in the 9/11 attacks. I don't know if that's true or not. If you've read any of the books that I've been reading over the past 3 weeks, give us a call and tell me if you read that too.
It's
I read
weird. That's
yeah.
too specific to have been made up.
I think I read it possibly in Nuclear War, a scenario. I potentially read it there, but I don't know if that's where I heard about Able Archer to begin with. And then I read that book last week, the 1983 War Game books. Did I read it in there? And then this week I've been reading Dark Territory by Frank Kaplan about the internet. And I've also been reading a new book by Fareed Zakaria, the CNN journalist, called what's it called? The Age of Revolutions, which I've really, really enjoyed. It's been just about times in the world where people have revolted, and he talks a lot about how there isn't a mythical past, and he talks about the French Revolution and just a bunch of really fun stuff, the Industrial Revolution. So I don't think I read it in there though, but and I also got Clear and Present Danger from my daughter had an orchestra concert at a church, and they had this huge wall of paperbacks that you can take and bring back or share or whatever, like a lending library. I took Clear and Present Danger, so I'm in the middle of that. So I got a lot going on in my brain.
I love that movie.
I don't know if I've seen that movie. Is Harrison Ford in that?
It's Harrison Ford.
I should see it.
Anyway, did you know that Clear and Present Danger, Some of All Fears, it's the same character.
It's all Jack Ryan, right?
It's all Jack Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a recent invention with John Krasinski doing him, but I guess Harrison Ford played him and Ben Affleck did too.
Yeah. I want to advocate for John Krasinski not writing any more movies after I saw If because it was terrible.
Who wrote
Bring
that?
back in. John Krasinski.
He wrote it?
Yeah, it was awful.
Did your kids like it?
Florence liked it. Miles liked it. Juan and I were like, I can't believe we just watched that.
Just everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. So anyway, I also saw something on Reddit this week that was you should get a t-shirt that has something that happened on your birthday on it that is a funny thing. So my birthday is June 5th, and Ronald Reagan died on June 5th, 2004. So wouldn't it be awesome if I had a t-shirt that said Ronald Reagan died on my birthday?
I think where you are, that would be awesome.
It
I
makes me
think it'll
laugh
be
so
very well
hard.
received.
It could also just be like, I feel like it could go either way. You could be like, oh, I'm so sorry for you. I don't know. It's like, it makes you laugh so hard. So for you, I found two things that happened on your birthday. One of them is, well, there were like a ton of really funny things that you could put on a t-shirt for your birthday, but one of them is the song Thrift Shop by Macklemore was released on my birthday. Wouldn't that be hilarious for you for a t-shirt? Would you like that?
I did have a moment where I thought Macklemore was gonna be the next big thing, and that was shame on me.
It's fine. But actually, what happened on your birthday, farmers, on the day you were born, the USSR performed an underground nuclear test. So you could get a shirt that says the USSR performed a nuclear underground test the day I was born.
Do you know which bomb it was?
No,
I love their Sar Bomba. That's like my favorite.
it wasn't that one, but I do love that idea. But those are great. And I bring that up because the day before my first birthday, Ronald Reagan watched the movie War Games that we talked about last week with Matthew Broderick. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of course.
So the
It's
kid,
where the monitor is just like black background with the green letters, right?
of course.
Yeah.
And again, speaking of like going back to our last episode, how old we are, like that wasn't that long ago. In
Taylor,
history, the span of
I
human evolution, that was zero time ago.
here to anybody who's like semi young adjacent, there was a point in time when if you wanted to play a computer game, you would have to type in the actual file directory where that computer game was stored. So you
Yeah,
would go into DOS and you would type C colon slash slash and you would manually type in the directory.
I know. It's wild. I'm under my desk getting, I have to turn my fan on because I'm getting hot talking about this. Hold on. Um, but yeah, not that long ago that all this was happening. So Ronald Reagan goes up to wherever he goes, Camp David, whatever, settles in, watches War Games, comes back to the Oval Office the next day, and he's like in a regular meeting with his Joint Chiefs of Staff or whoever, and he's like, "Hey, did you guys see this movie?" And they hadn't because it had just come out, and Ronald Reagan got like to see it at home. I wonder if the president still does that. If
Yeah,
he's like, I really want to see
of
this movie before it
course.
comes out. Like,
And he got a
what
lot
do
of
you think?
special privileges.
No, I know, but like, what do you think he requests? I don't
Who,
know.
Biden?
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind, probably. I don't know.
I mean, I could get that from him right now. I'm saying like new. So he goes to his office and he's like, has anybody seen this? And they're like, no, like what is he talking about? And he's like, could this happen? And they were like, no, it's probably just a movie, whatever. And then they come back to him a week later with a report and they're like, actually, sir, it's way worse than that.
Wait, Taylor, before
Like,
you get into it, because
mhm.
I haven't seen War Games, I've probably seen bits and pieces of it. Can you
Yeah.
just like what did what did Ronald Reagan see?
He saw a kid hacking into like the military computer system and potentially responding to like a threat by the Soviet Union and starting World War III. He thought he was playing like a game. So like Ender's Game came out in 1995 or 1985. Have you read that?
No, of course I haven't read
Well,
that.
Ender's
Taylor, come
Game,
on.
well, it's a kid's book. It's so good, but it's about, the future and this child who's like going to save the world from these aliens. But essentially what he does is plays a video game to attack the aliens, which is like drone warfare now. Like it's predicting all the stuff that's happening.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what happened at the end of War Games, but I know that he like almost ruined the world.
It's funny because it sounds like Ronald Reagan's understanding of technology is the exact same as every parent's understanding of
Hmm.
technology of like if I'm on the internet, everybody's seeing what I'm doing.
And it's not like he wasn't wrong, and this is all so unbelievably new. So, um, like it's not weird that he thought this, like, and everybody being like the internet isn't a threat, nothing bad could happen is happening all around him. So even after this happens, the government really doesn't do anything. They're not regulating anything. They're not even like locking things down because they don't know what it means, like they don't know what a network is. Like we know what a network is, kind of, but like they don't know what a network is. They don't know what that means. And um, so there's a couple times when like Hollywood movies, because Hollywood has, a better imagination than the government and a bigger budget for these things, like presuppose things that the government's like, oh shit, could that really happen? And then they have to like go figure it out. And this is definitely one of them. So the thing with this is that we've been doing like intercepting data and intercepting communications
Wait,
all for
Taylor,
always. Hmm.
what was the Will Smith gene hack? Enemy of the State? Didn't
Hmm.
that predict Snowden and like Prism and all that?
It might have.
Okay, I'm sorry, I distracted.
No, I don't know, but we should maybe watch some of these movies and have a movie club because I do want to learn more. Yeah, an American political thinner. It's all the NSA. I'm gonna talk about the NSA in a second, so that's who we're talking about too. So yeah, let's yes, I'm sure that's exactly right because we've been doing things like intercepting people's communication always. Like there's always going to be some dude who like knocked down a dude on a horse to like get the things that they were sending. We could do it with telephone wires, or could do it with telegraphs, and we would do things like, either shut the system down or send the wrong codes, send like, the wrong information to people. And we've always been doing that. As long as we could figure out how to do it, we've been doing it. So that's always been a thing, but the internet is like a whole new thing because you don't have to physically be anywhere. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter where the person is. Like you can figure out what they're saying. So also anything that we do, our enemies can do as well. And that's the way everybody thinks. So no matter where you are, who your enemy is, if you're learning to do something on a computer, your enemy is either not far behind you or they've already done it. Things are just kind of evolve like that quickly. So, oh, I'll also like never forget when, do you remember when the engineers of the last job we had together did that presentation and they said there is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer?
I don't remember that, but that sounds right.
Yeah, I think about that all the time because I'm like, you're right, like there is no cloud, it's someone else's computer. Like stuff isn't saved forever infinitely in something infinite that doesn't exist. It's like a very real piece of hardware where things are saved,
It's not
you know?
someone's computer. It's like a warehouse that Amazon controls.
Well, it's not, but it's physical.
It is
It's like a thing.
physical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And now, when you work at any corporate job like we do, or any job at all, you're going to get a text from your CEO that's not from them asking you to buy gift cards. And I used to train on this at my last role as well. And I found some stories of like, at one point, some dude from Estonia called a bunch of offices at Google and Facebook and was like, hey, I had a work order to come and fix this printer and I did it and no one paid me. And they would just pay him. And he made like millions of dollars because, there's things where like people just were like, oh, okay. And then they would just pay him. Or when someone hacked Robinhood, they did it by calling in the help desk and asking to have their password reset.
Taylor,
And then
I hope I'm
those
so
did it.
rich one day that somebody can scam me out of $1 million and I don't even notice it.
Yeah, don't even notice for real. But I also was talking to someone, I won't say who because I don't want to get their company in trouble, but whose company's having trouble with people actually clicking on the links and opening up the text messages. Because like they try to make you like, they scare you like it's litigation or I'm your CEO, I need you right away or things like that. So like that hadn't happened, that had been happening in like different ways. Like I guess I could write you a letter and tell you that I'm doing something, you would write back and we could like do a thing. Like remember when Marie Antoinette was that guy was tricked into buying that necklace?
Yeah,
Like that's shit like that has always happened, but now it can happen so much more exponentially because of the internet, you know?
right.
So, um, everyone be careful. Get a password manager. Don't answer weird texts from your boss. They're not going to text you, ask you for gift cards. They're not. And just, make sure that you're not opening any attachments and all of that stuff. And like most of us know that now, but still not everyone, because they wouldn't do it if it didn't work, you know?
Totally.
And some of the first things that people did using the internet to do this like cyber warfare is they would do simple things like send an email and be like, "Hey, it's your commander. Meet me at this corner at 5 o'clock. I have to tell you something." And then the guy would get there and they'd kill him, you know, or put him in jail or whatever. So as right away they started to trick people like, in different ways. So, as far as like the presidents go, and again talking about how new this all is, so Dick Dick Cheney and George Bush, they had never used a computer when they were in office. Like there's like wasn't a reason to, you know?
We are so old, Taylor.
I know. And like Barack Obama was the first president who had a personal cell phone and he had a BlackBerry. Do you remember this? And he
I
didn't want to give it
remember.
up. And
Yeah.
they built him one just for him because it had to be so much more encrypted than anything else, But he was like, what are you talking about? I have to have a cell phone. But like that hadn't even been a thing.
Do presidents have cell phones? Like, did Trump and Biden? I mean, Trump had to have had an iPhone, right?
Well, he definitely has one now because he's like tweeting from it. But like,
But he was tweeting when he was president.
I'm sure he did. But it also it probably has like the most protection of anything, which I think it should, you know, all things
Yeah, that is
considered.
crazy.
But we also like know all their text messages. Like, remember how Hope Hicks was on the stand the other day in Trump's trial, and she had texted during the insurrection day, like, "We're all fucked. No one's ever gonna hire us."
Yeah, but that's not hacking. That's subpoena.
Yeah, but it's all there, I guess is what I mean too. Like, it all exists. I
Yeah,
think, like I
yeah.
was saying last time, like your stuff exists forever, and then if they need it, the government's going to go in and find it.
I love that that's what she thought in that moment.
Yeah, I know.
Not the fact that they're about to literally execute Mike Pence.
Yeah, a whole thing. Okay, so back to Ronald Reagan. This is all brand new. People who were inventing the internet were like, this is going to be vulnerable, but no one really understood what that meant really yet. And the first report back to Ronald Reagan was from 1987. It's called NSDD 145, and you can get it now online. It is unclassified, but essentially what it says is like, we need to do something about this, and it outlines what they think we should do, but no one did anything. It was like every branch should have a people dedicated to cybersecurity, essentially. I don't think they're using the word cyber yet, but you know what I mean. And like information security, and everyone should be paying attention to this. And it really wasn't, no one really did anything, but they were aware that like something needed to be done.
I will say
Um,
kudos to Ronald Reagan for doing that because back then the internet was probably just like
it's
one
very
other
early.
guy. Like there's
Yeah.
no credit card transactions happening,
Yep.
no personal details. So
That's such a big one too. Like the money that is now available online is
yeah.
insane. Um, so yeah, the summary of NSDD 145 is it notes the quote the threats to automated information processing systems and lays out objectives, policies, and organizational structure designed to safeguard such systems. But it was the first time someone like had thought about it and written it down. So someone needs to be on top of it in some way. This is where I also wanted to bring up the book I read called The Kill Chain. That basically is like the government needs a really good CRM and a really good system to be able to see what everyone is doing inside the government because they're not doing that. And that is what led to 9/11 of many things. Like some people knew they were
Well, they're
there,
not
some
sharing
people
it.
knew this, not sharing it exactly. So they need to share it. Um, so all of this is flawed and they're not really talking to each other. In the beginning, there was the ARPANET, which was on phone lines, and we'd hacked phone lines before, so you could cut that out and turn those off. But this was something new. This was going as the internet was evolving past that. So the main government body that governs data warfare is the NSA, which is the National Security Agency. The NSA was started in World War II for code breaking. It was called Mission Intelligence Branch 8, so MI8, and now it's called the NSA. And they will do things in different presidencies based on like technology and what we have, but they hadn't really thought about the internet yet until about like the 1990s as like being a threat. The director of the NSA from 1992 to 1996 was named Mike McConnell. He was a vice admiral of the Navy, and he went to the movies and saw the movie Sneakers. Have you seen that? I just watched the trailer.
No.
So it is a star-studded heist film. It stars River Phoenix, Sidney Poitier, Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley, all these big people in it. And it is about the NSA hiring these guys to break into their computers to see if they can. So like that thing really did happen. People would hire hackers to see if they can get into someone's system, and they always could, you know? So the director of the NSA sees this movie about people breaking into the NSA, and he's like, well, fuck. Now there's something else I gotta worry about. And
That
like
sounds
that's when
like
we started to worry about it. But the
this is
movie
like a
came
great
first.
cast.
It's a great cast.
Ben Kingsley, honestly, I think is a little underrated.
Really, I think he's well rated.
Is he well rated?
Yeah.
I don't watch award shows.
Well, I think he's great, but I don't think anyone would say he wasn't. But I don't know. Um, so so there's ideas that come out of that. There's a book called Neuromancer that they use the word cyber for the first time. So it's really like in the pop culture in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s. I'm sure like The Matrix is coming out. All those movies talked about like hackers and what was the one with Sandra Bullock where she orders the pizza that we talked about before?
Net.
The net. Yeah. Look, it's all so new that whatever Hollywood can imagine is actually stuff that can actually happen because it is kind of infinite and kind of new. So a couple other things that happened, and this is something that you mentioned, is the Oklahoma City bombing. A lot of the radicalization of people like Timothy McVeigh was coming from message boards and coming from the internet. So they were seeing this like communication that they'd never seen before. Um, in 1993, the World Trade Center is bombed. Do you remember when that happened?
1983.
No, I'm saying, would you remember that they bombed the parking garage?
Yeah, yeah. I just mentioned KSM did that, or he
Um, my
organized it.
mhm, mhm, mhm. My dad was on the phone with someone there when it happened, and he said like he was talking to her about something because they worked in the Board of Trade in Chicago, and they were all of a sudden like everyone was screaming, and the lady hung up, and he said it was very scary.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Um, So now it's the 90s. Again, all that stuff is happening. The internet's coming, and Al Gore is going to say that he invented the internet. So Al Gore, who was vice president at this time in the mid 90s, everyone obviously made fun of him for saying that he invented the internet. But essentially, he was like the first person in Congress who was really, really excited about it. He crafted the High Performance Computing and Communications Act of 1991, which gave $600 million to working on networks for the government. He did was the first person to say information superhighway. He said, I took initiative in creating the internet, which really meant he was passing these bills and talking about it in a way that no one else was. Even Newt Gingrich said, quote, in all fairness, it's something that Gore had worked on a long time. Gore is not the father of the internet, but in all fairness, Gore is the person who, in the Congress, most systematically worked to make sure that we got an internet.
Did he
Like,
actually say I invented the internet?
he said, I took the initiative in creating the internet.
Yeah, in context, that's not insane. I mean,
I
he
know. No,
kind
no,
of
of course
he
not.
did.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we all remember him saying I invented the internet, and then like, no, I'm pretty sure some like MIT researchers who work
Sure.
in dungeons invented the concept.
Do you remember when we went to that dungeon at Jim's funeral
Yeah,
and met one
yeah,
of the guys who sent the first message on the internet from UCLA? So yeah,
that's
it's
so
those guys.
cool.
But Al Gore, like he really worked for it and since like the 70s. So he was someone who was like, this is coming and I see it. Um, so they need to do obviously a war game on this. And we talked about what a war game is last week. Like it's a practice of something that could happen. Some people play the baddies, some people play the goodies, and you figure out like what could happen in these scenarios. So every year they do an eligible receiver um, exercise. So the Pentagon's Joint Staff, they have this exercise every year. Every year it's a different war game to highlight some sort of threat or threat on the horizon. So eligible receiver 97 was held in or out of the World Trade Center. We'll never know because I cannot reference what I read that said that it was. But it was June 9th through 13th, 1997. The NSA was divided into two teams. The blue team was the NSA as they are now equipped to retaliate to some sort of cyber attack. And the red team played North Korea, Iran, and Cuba. They did all sorts of stuff like DDoS attacks. They changed emails that were sent to people. They disrupted communication. They accessed over 36 government networks. At one point, they couldn't get in to the J2, which is like the Joint Chiefs
Yeah, yeah.
office. They couldn't get into their computers. So they just called the office and asked to reset the password. And they did. And they were in. It's exactly what happened at Robinhood like 2 years ago. Like
Yeah.
every,
I mean that's the part that I think like Hollywood sensationalizes a lot of is like it's mostly just social engineering. Like
exactly.
it's not like some whiz kid who's like 50 years more advanced than everybody else that's like hacking.
Hmm. Totally. And they weren't allowed to use anything that wasn't commercially available. So like imagine them just like going to Radio Shack, like and just like, getting shit to do this.
Again, you're showing
They
our age.
No, I know, but it's the 90s. I feel like I can say that. Um, so they nobody knew that it was going to happen. It was super, super, super secret. The NSA counsel, Richard Marshall, was suspected of espionage because someone told on him for being in the office so much. And he was like, oh my God, I'm here for this top secret thing. Fuck you. Which is hilarious. But like no one, it was that secret. But they really did get into computer networks. They had like a board game where they could say like where they could hack the 911 system. They could shut down the electricity in major cities. They flooded the fax lines in all of the like major government agencies. They got into so many passwords and so many people's emails because they would literally go and dumpster dive and find passwords that people had written down and thrown out. And also, most of the passwords were just like password. Like they weren't good. So like And of course that was like also brand new. So people were just like, okay, whatever. Like I remember the first couple times I had to make a password, I was like, what is this? And you use your name or something.
Right.
Um, but so they did all this stuff, and then the third thing they did, so the first thing was civilian, so they were able to prove that they did not, but they could have like knocked out 911 lines and electricity in major cities. The second was the military, where they really did, flood the fax lines, turn off the phone lines, send fake emails to people. Like they did all the things that they said they were going to do. And then the third thing was they really did hijack a ship. They hijacked the ship MV National Pride, which is hilarious. That is the name is National Pride. Like using the internet and their all of their technology to
Wait,
to
in
do that.
97?
hmm
So they took control of they remote control operated a ship.
they hijacked it. So they like turned off all of its stuff and they left their own calling card, which was Kilroy was here. So they would, basically they turned everything off and said Kilroy was here. Like they could have taken it over, you know.
It's wild.
Yeah. So they also found other people in there too. There were other hackers already in there that they didn't know. And so they were just kind of like, they weren't doing anything bad. They were just kind of poking around. There was someone from France, turned out to just be like a person who was like, can I see if I can do this? And they could.
Taylor,
So
if they could take over a ship in 1997, can't they just like take over a plane today that's flying?
I'm sure you probably could. I'm sure that there's like a bunch of ways that they make it so you cannot do that, but I'm sure that's not impossible.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. Like they can get into pretty much anything. So like the government can and other people can, and there's also like other nefarious people unaffiliated with the government who are trying to get into things. And then like you said last time, like everything is saved and stored. They're watching everything that you do because it is like what could possibly happen next is a real question, Like you couldn't have imagined what is happening right now. Like the technology that allows you and I to have this conversation when you're in Texas and I'm in California and record it and share it with the world is mind-blowing to 1997, you know? So like who knows what's going to happen in the next 30 years.
Now we do sound like our parents, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid, but
Yeah.
I'm also I'm going to try my best. Like
Hold
I reckon
together.
Yeah, like I recognize that like my job has been for the last decade or so to teach people how to use software, and also I don't want to learn any new software. So I get it.
We're
I'm
fine.
not.
We know as much as we need to know to be fine for our lifetimes. We don't need
Yeah,
to know the next thing.
yeah, totally. That's me clutching my BlackBerry and being like, I don't want to. But, but I had a pink one. It was so cute, but here we are. Um, so after this, um, only one person who was a technical officer in the Department of Defense in the Pacific noticed that something was happening and unplugged the computers. But he was the only one. And it was supposed to take 2 weeks to see how much they could do in 2 weeks, and they finished all of their directives in 4 days. They were able
Yep.
to just like hack everything.
Taylor, I might have to edit this out. But do you
What?
remember a time when we were employed together where we were subject to an incredibly pervasive DDoS attack
hmm
where the only solution we thought was to fly a person from our team to the storage facility that has like the computers that our
hmm
version of the software was hosted on and
hmm
just unplug it.
Yep.
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
It's
We
crazy.
that was our life.
I
That
know.
wasn't that was like not even 10 years ago.
No, that was not long ago. I remember that all the time because I remember how much apologizing I had to do.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that sucks.
I was in charge of apologizing publicly. And I did that a lot, a lot, a lot. But yeah, there's so much that you can do. Like that's just one of many, many things that people can do. And there's so much social engineering now and so many things. But eligible receiver 97 was really the first one where they were like, oh shit, like someone who just goes to the Radio Shack can hack into the Department of Defense. That is very, very bad. And then hopefully it's gotten better, but it hasn't gotten a ton better because the Kill Chain, the book that I read about the military not talking to each other, is from 2020. So they're still the systems aren't connected in the right way. And who knows how safe they are and who is listening to this. It's not listening to this on Wednesday, you know.
Taylor, you know what? When you mentioned the ship, sorry, I keep harping on that. Again, we keep talking about how old we're getting, but I
Hmm.
think that there's like a convergence of things that are happening, which is just like life experience, historical context, all that stuff mixing
Hmm.
it together. When you said the ship thing, you know what I thought of was we were living in Los Angeles at the time, and I can't remember this guy's name, but somewhere on Hollywood, this like Mercedes Benz, and you know where Hollywood, like West Hollywood, like in West Hollywood, like the lanes are separated. You know,
Hmm.
like it's densely packed, and like this Mercedes Benz carrying this one passenger at like 3 o'clock in the morning accelerated to some like absurd speed, like 100 miles per hour on Hollywood in West Hollywood, and
Hmm.
crashed into a tree and killed them.
Hmm.
And it was the journalist who had reported on General Stanley McChrystal talking shit about President
Hmm.
Obama, which
Hmm.
President Obama immediately fired. This was like during the Iraq War when he was there
Hmm.
reporting.
Hmm.
And it was very suspicious the
Suspicious?
way
Yeah.
he died.
No, and imagine like, okay, so now imagine if you are a spy and you are in like a Tesla and they like hack into your Tesla and kill you, right? Like there's so many.
This would have been like this was I think it was 2015 or 16.
But I mean like cyber hacking to kill you in a different way than like poisoning you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but that's the part that's like crazy when you said that ship because I was like a ship in
Hmm.
1987. Our cars are so computerized. Like,
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I read like an article or a thing a while ago where there was like a used car dealer or something where they would lease cars to folks and they would put a monitor in it, and if they hadn't paid, they would turn off the car, but they were doing it like while they were driving. And you're like, you can't do that, Like maybe you can make it so they can't turn it on again if they're not paying for it, but you'd have to tell them that you were going to be able to do that. But you can't just turn a car off when they're in the middle of the fucking freeway. People are
yeah,
going to die, you know? But they have like the physical ability to do that. Like I can lock my car from my phone, so who knows?
I'm on your team. I'm scared now.
I know, and I'm a little scared. So, just one more thing. Out of eligible receiver 97, directly we started the United States Cyber Command, which is US Cybercom, which sounds cool. And that's the department right now that is in charge of, is a part of the NSA in charge of trying to figure out how to keep us safe. And then one more anecdote from the book. I'm almost done with it. I'll finish it, and maybe I'll have more next week. But one thing that we did over the airwaves of the internet, basically using the internet, is in the 90s, there was stuff happening in Serbia and there was an uprising. And to stop people from going out and protesting and being part of it, the United States made like most of the TV channels play Baywatch so people stayed home
That's pretty awesome.
because it was the most popular show in the world and people wanted to watch it. Um, but stuff like that, like it's not just like your computer, but like with the internet, like we're saying, like the water company is all computerized. They could shut down the water. They could shut down electricity. They could shut down all of the like essential services and all of that. Because now it's all online, which is something inconceivable 30 years ago.
It's like we just talked about how the president of Iran's plane, like or
I
helicopter, was
know.
just downed. Like, why do these people? So it was like when Yevgeny Prigozhin, the guy who revolted against Putin, and then he's like flying on a plane and the
Hmm.
plane crashed. Like, I would assume at some point, like you just have to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You just gotta avoid
You gotta like
technology.
you gotta avoid all people. You gotta like live on a farm in the middle of nowhere and not have anyone see you and be totally self-sustainable and don't take any deliveries and don't use any technology. Like
Aren't you
there's just
kind of doing that right now?
no, I'm literally talking to you right now over Zoom. So no, I just told you I can lock my brand new Subaru with my phone.
How do you
Like
like the
there's no,
Subaru?
I like it. It's pretty
It's
awesome.
nice, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Yeah, we are fast approaching a point where the world makes no sense to us anymore.
Yep, yep. Maybe we'll just, if we keep
Taylor,
doing
do
this,
you
we'll,
feel old?
no, physically, I actually don't feel old. Like, I don't feel like
Do
super
you
fit,
get
but I've never,
tired quick?
I'm tired. I've always been tired. I remember in high school, I was like, I'm tired. You're right. I wasn't doing anything, you know? So I feel like I can sleep and I can move and my face looks youthful and I don't feel old.
Do you look forward to the quiet of nobody talking to you or being around you and being alone with your thoughts?
Like on my day-to-day basis. Or
Yes.
like, yes, yes. I'm very rarely alone. And I know like during COVID, I worked with a lot of people who were like, yeah, I live alone and I talk to you all here and then turn off my computer and I just like, watch TV or I talk to people on the phone, but I don't see other people. And that was really difficult for them. And then for me, I was like, really? Because always someone yelling at me. Like I also am taking care of two children who are here and there's always someone here. Um, so sometimes my favorite time of night is like if everyone goes to sleep and I'm up by myself at like 1 o'clock, I'll like get a drink and just like walk around the house and be like, ah,
That does sound nice.
3 nights.
Yeah. No, I've noticed as part of like getting older is when it gets closer to like a socially acceptable bedtime, I get
Yeah.
kind of excited of like,
Hmm.
okay, no FOMO. I get to actually go lay down
Yes.
and just,
I
yeah.
always, I was thinking about this the other day. I always think about how in grad school, I met this dude on the subway and we dated for a while. But our first date, he was like, oh, hey, why don't we meet at this bar? Why don't we meet at 10 o'clock? And I was like, at night? Like, are you on drugs? Like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, okay. So I like worked all day, went to grad school, went home and like looked around the apartment for 2 hours and then went on this date. It was so weird. Like,
That's
this is too
rough.
late for me. What's wrong with you?
Can't do that.
And I like staying up late, but I was like, I'm not going to start something at 10 o'clock at night. That makes no sense. Like,
I have been getting comedy tickets lately that start at 10, and those are rough nights. Those
that's
are really, really
rough.
rough nights.
Yeah, I can't. That's too late. Because you're not gonna get home until like 1.
Midnight. Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, so we just segued into old people corner, but
But I mean, I can imagine being, in the Situation Room with Ronald Reagan being like, ugh, Reagan, like, of course this isn't gonna happen. Like, of course we're not gonna have like computers attack us. Ha 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 ha. And then like, oh no, they can. And like they can affect things in real life. It's actually huge what they can do and the
yeah.
access that they can have to people's lives that like we haven't never even imagined. Have you ever watched Fargo? Any of the
Oh yeah.
Fargos?
Oh, the movie or
The show.
no, I never watched the show.
The show's really good. It has a bunch of different seasons and they're all kind of different, but in one of them, there's like this, they put this bug on people's computers where like they want to see if you're going to do this thing. And as soon as you do it, it makes your computer take a picture of you and send it to them so they know that you did it. And it's like really scary because then they like kill the people who did it, you know?
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure
was
that's
an episode of
possible.
Black Mirror.
Was it? Oh, I bet. Yeah, Black Mirror. I mean, just watch some Black Mirror.
Which
Also,
like
all
which
that's probably
which Taylor,
possible.
if you mate all this with like AI, you can see the natural progression of it is like at scale dramatically worse than what it is right now.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's kind of crazy.
I don't see it getting better, and I don't even know what better means. Like you were saying before, like, sure, if the government is listening to my stuff to make sure that I'm not going to do something terrible, okay, but also then like, when does that go too far? And then like, I understand privacy rights, but like, I, remember like when also in our last in places of work where GDPR was a consequence and a thing. And then you'd be like, okay, well, if you want to be deleted from everything and then you get deleted from everything, you want to get back in, why did you do this to us? That happened all the time.
Yeah, my mind is spinning now because I've made fun of a lot of people in my lifetime who were like really into privacy.
Hmm.
Anyways, lessons are
I
being
know. I
learned.
had a lot of people who were like in the beginning, like very afraid of the internet. Like my cousins were like, I don't want anyone to know my address. And I'm like, dude, if you think that I couldn't find your address in 4 seconds, you're dumb. Like,
See, that was always my like, I'm literally thinking about a relative of mine who's like, I don't want anything of mine on the internet. I'm like, anybody on the internet can find your social security number, like in
yeah, like, do you think I can't find you? Like,
yeah, one download of Onion or Tor, and like you're done.
totally. And like I met my husband in college, but whenever any of my friends are like go like, oh, I met someone. I'm like, okay, first and last. Doesn't mother's maiden name. I'm like, let me find out about them. And
Dude,
like,
not even that. Even before you even talk to them, just reverse image search them.
of course.
Because that image is usually
Uh,
the one they're most proud of, which is the one that's being posted in the most places. Again, it's so
mm-hmm.
comparing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yep.
That's fun. Nice little positive note between
It's fine.
Guantanamo Bay and this. Send you
Things are
off.
mostly fine. Yeah. I don't mean you to listen to us for it's not things are mostly fine with Taylor and Fars. So
I think that our
what do you think was
episodes
gonna
are
happen?
striking a more positive note. Mostly because, again, I think we're just getting to the age where we just don't give a shit anymore. Like it's like
Hmm.
this stuff is just not that consequential to us anymore.
I know, and I mean, I obviously love doing this, and I just was like, I don't know, I feel like we're learning so much stuff and talking about stuff, and the more we learn about it, we're like, we've always been the same, you know,
So
like
yeah, exactly,
people don't
exactly.
change. We've always been the same. We do the same thing in many different ways, and we're gonna keep doing that forever. So buckle up.
I will say, I am like, again, it's like an old thought. I am getting like more and more into reading about like the US like military surveillance, like just like the whole thing is like super fascinating. When I was researching Gitmo, it took me down so many different rabbit holes of like all these different organizations within the federal government that
Hmm.
man, there's a lot of depth to it. Like,
Yeah.
like if you actually understand this stuff, you have to have been like the smartest person in the world because there's so many different agencies with
And,
subcommands and task force, and
and I don't think there's anyone who knows it all, you know?
it's
Like
impossible.
it's impossible. And like and also not designed that way. So like in my story, like, the an attorney at the NSA is told on by a colleague for being in there late, which is what spies do. Like during the Cold War, the spies would like be the last person to leave for lunch because they would be taking a briefcase of documents out to lunch to be copied, and they'd bring it back. So like you just you'd always be on edge as well, being like, are they doing something that I don't know about? Like, what is happening? And then I don't know. There's so many things you can think about.
The US just started testing drones, underwater drones. Did you hear about this? Or like submarine
No.
drones. And like I started reading about it and I went down again another rabbit hole because it was like this is not like airplane drones because airplane drones get a signal immediately to them. In the depths of the ocean, you can't get a signal immediately. It is crazy
Right. I
technology.
just
It's
learned
like
that you can't find a submarine. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, no,
It's
that's real
so
scary.
interesting. It's
Yeah.
so wild and interesting. Anyways, so I guess this
Ooh.
little precursor foreshadowing of like the topics that we're going to be discussing later.
We're doing
So
fine. Thanks for
TBD.
coming along. Tell your friends.
Um, yeah, tell your friends, tell your family. Anything else to report, Taylor?
No, I got some support from some folks on Instagram just about we talked about last week separating church from state in schools. So thank you for people who are also agree that if you want to go to religious school, go to one. But if you don't go to religious school, keep it out of school.
Yeah, people like let people
Please.
believe what they want to believe.
Yeah, who cares? Um, cool. Thank you.
Sweet. Uh, Shout out our email and socials.
doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Please send us an email. We are on all the socials at doomtofailpod. And yeah, follow along. We'll let you know when episodes are coming up. We'll share some other things that are relevant. And we also have a Substack, so I send out emails like once a month with all of our episodes so you don't lose that. And please tell your friends. This is like episode 108 or something. So we have a lot that you can catch up on, and we're excited to share it.
And we should be famous by now. The fact that we're not famous right now should be a
Is
crime.
because you have not done any marketing.
It's your fault. Wait, are you talking about me or the audience?
You.
Damn it. I thought you were blaming the audience.
Business, business, business. Oh my God. Also, just everyone can cut off right now, but just also in the movie, the terrible movie that I watched last night, the Imaginary Friend, the If, there was a scene with Bobby Moynihan where he's literally doing like the prepping for a presentation and he's like 20% growth in Q4, 20% growth in Q4, business, 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 graphs, business, graphs, business. You're like, has John Krasinski ever been to a meeting? Like, what is happening? It was so stupid.
And now that's going to be a
20% in
catchphrase.
Q4, 20% in Q4. Business, business, business. Files, file, reports,
I feel like I'm going to
shareholders.
catch myself accidentally literally saying those words soon. Um,
Dumb.
Anyways,
Thanks.
thank you, Taylor.
Thanks,
Thank you
Russ.
for sharing. Very fun. I'll go ahead and cut it off.